Starfall Light was first worked on back in 2016 on November 19th. And yeah, I still remember that date. That was the first time that any work has been made on this project. Though the progress was rather slow back then, that's the date some people would consider a birth of Starfall Light. However, the date we consider official is the time we first made the public announcement. That was our announcement video back in June 16th last year. That's right, Starfall Light project is officially 1 year old now. Now that is a very important anniversary, and it's just as important to celebrate with something special. For that occasion, we decided to take a look back at the whole journey that led us here, and to show you what exactly has been going on behind the scenes this whole time. This video is our gift to you for the whole year of trust, suggestions and greatest support we could ever hope for from you. We hope you will enjoy it. So let's get this started. Okay, this one might be a bit long, cause there's a lot to say here. It'd be difficult to count the number of times when the game design was changed. I mean, at the very beginning the game was supposed to only have one character, and that was Iris. Yep, Lily didn't even exist back then. Actually, the decision of adding Lily as a second playable character carried many changes along with it, as far as altering our entire gameplay concept we were originally going for. This was when we started focusing on giving both of these characters strengths and weaknesses instead of just making a one without either. Iris's gameplay was supposed to be much slower, more platforming-like, focused on things like puzzle solving, while Lily was supposed to be fast and dynamic, focusing on battling enemies using her sword and magic. Of course, it was also important to make both of these playstyles actually good. Adding such a feature was rather risky, as there was a chance that people wouldn't like one of the characters, and that would mean that half of the game would become just unfun. For the past few months, most of our focus was on Iris. The goal was to make her gameplay more clean than the original design was. Platforming games are rather simplistic in nature, so it's important to not overcomplicate them with unnecessary features. For that reason, some of the skills of Iris have been tweaked or even removed from the game. The good example of that is Iris's jumping ability. In the past concept, Iris was gonna have two types of jumps depending on when she jumped, but as of recently, we replaced that with just a single jump, since the game was more enjoyable that way. That's of course not to say we're taking away all her toys. We still want to make sure that she's an interesting character to play, and that means giving her interesting features that will make her unique in her own way.
So, now that we've talked about design, let's talk about programming. We have been doing a lot of coding over the past few months, working on mechanics and gameplay experience. We've been taking extra special care of our little pony, Iris. We've been taking special care to make sure her controls are smooth but slightly realistic at the same time. So far, Iris can hover in the air, jump higher the longer you hold the jump button, and climb ledges that she bumps into. And soon she'll also be able to automatically sneak when enemies are close. We've been working hard to make sure all of our abilities feel great to control, so that they're intuitive and fun to play with. We want you to believe that she's a real character running around in her own world. There's a lot of code involved in that. Good controls would take less time to make, but we want great controls, so we're taking extra special time and attention to make great controls.
Before we started our cooperation with Baka Studios, our animations were made in the form of sprite sheets. To those who don't know, this is what sprite sheets look like. It's a series of images played one after another, which all form an animation. The big issue with that is that it leaves very little room for dynamic animation. You have to create a sheet for every animation and a transition between them. So if you want to create a complex systems, it quickly becomes a total mess. Not to mention that sprite sheets weigh a ton of memory. That's why we switched to a skeleton animation with the help of Baka Studios. With this method, all animations become just a single model. Not only that, creating complicated animation systems becomes far easier, and that whole mess with sprite sheets is now gone forever. Right now we're actually working on something we call 3 layers of animation: body, head and emotion. Body layer is simply a character walking around and performing most movement actions. Head layer is the animation of character looking in different directions, usually at the enemy or a point of interest. The emotion layer consists of eyes, mouth and ears. These parts all help show off the emotion of our characters. All these layers are independent from each other. This way we can create a far more interactive animation that feels much better than just a series of images playing out.
concept artists are responsible for painting the whole world of Starfall Light. It's up to us to design the locations, characters, and monsters. This universe is pretty big, so we've got a lot of space to work with. And it begins with the basic question: what kind of world do we want to create? Do we want it to be magical, without any place for logic, or a fantasy world that shares elements with reality? We agreed that we wanted to make a mystical land that still has its own set of rules, so it is more sensible and authentic. Every creature and location has its place in suitable background with a consistent story. Designing a world is a never-ending list of questions. What does the average life of this monster look like? What's the story behind its appearance? How does it play their part in the game? Is this element too fantastic, or does it make sense in our world? It may seem like unnecessary work, but this is an important step in creating world's overall design. As artists, we are not only creating a visual representation of the story, but we also put a lot of effort to weaving a story beyond what is physically in the face of the player. For the sake of not making Starfall Light your generic platformer, we are taking full advantage of the fantasy genre, starting with the small details of furniture and finishing on large magical creatures with complex backgrounds. We are slowly building our version of the Starfall Light world. During the past few months, we've been creating arts for various levels and creatures, including those that will make an appearance in upcoming demo. We are thrilled to finally let some of our painted magic see the light of day. Considering that our game is made using simple vector graphics, there's very little we need to improve on the graphic qualities, so instead we've been focusing on improving our art style. That was obvious that our game has a very unique style, one that's easily recognizable and nice to look at. This style, however, needs to continue into even the smallest of details in our interface. The first victim of that was our level design. At the very beginning, that you might remember, our levels were too standard and functional, but the details needed a touch of attention we strived for. So we are currently improving the layouts, adding new details, sub-locations with far more diversity. Each location has a bit of backstory, making sure that it remains unique for as long as possible to pique the player's interest and excite them at the thought of exploring what comes next. Another victim was the UI, and that ranges from status displays, main menu, even the font. We needed to create something that will remain immersive with the game style, so we rejected plain old bars that have nothing interesting in them, and went with something a little more stylish and climatic. As of now, the work on graphics is deeply connected to the work of our artists. As we are focusing on designing new locations, we are also designing new options for styles for the interface to match. And we can't wait for you to see how our art style will evolve further.
So, you like our new soundtrack? Oh yeah, it's been playing this whole time. A lot of these tracks are using levels that are currently being developed, which isn't a lot. But we think we can at least let you in on some technical details regarding how our soundtrack is going to work. We've been actually asked about dynamic music, and the answer is yes. We are working on something that is of that sort. What we're currently creating is essentially a system that changes the music based on a situation that the player is in. Now, just to give you a simple example, if a player is fine, a normal song will play. If the player sees the enemy but remains hidden, a creepy silent version of that song will play. If the player gets discovered or is being chased, music will become energetic, portraying the feeling of danger. And that, of course, means the music won't use simple tracks.
It's still hard to believe that it has been a year now. The truth is, we never really expected to get this far. We were extremely surprised when we noticed how much positive response we got when we first started out. It really is incredible. We know that so far, no public version is ready to be released yet, and that is just as painful to us as it is to you guys. But this is partially what the video is for. We want to show you that things are actually getting done. and the project is progressing, way faster than it used to actually. While we understand that this video may not be enough to convince some of you that this project has a chance, we're hoping that you'll still consider this a nice gift. The demonstration version has been progressing really nicely, and while we can't exactly reveal the release date yet, we can assure you that it's getting really close now, so stay tuned for updates. And as always, oh god, not again. Trizy Mesh. I'm gonna look it up. Trzymajcie się, Lucyka.